Alright, this video is going to be pretty different from what I normally do here on the channel, but to tie it into Ponytown anyway, I'll show you what Shyvians look like in Ponytown at the very end, or at least my Shyvian in Ponytown at the end. But for now, let's talk about Shyvian lore and Shyvians and what they are and everything like that. So Shyvians, I'll put up like how it's spelled and how to pronounce it and everything there, although I guess you technically are hearing me pronounce it. They're a species that I'm trying to get started, essentially. You could think of it as like a furry species, an anthro species, or just something else entirely if you need to. But in this video, I want to go over their biology, their behavior, and their abilities, and then maybe some final thoughts and stuff at the end. So starting off with their biology, this is going to mostly take a look at how they look and how you would make your own Shyvian if you wanted to, which you totally are allowed to do. Their heads are either bird or fish-like. You can pick one. It doesn't matter which ones they are. You can have like an eagle head, a hammerhead shark, a dolphin head, a blue jay head or something like that. There's a lot of different kind of heads you can do here, because you can take pretty much any bird or any fish, and that's the head of your Shyvian. They also don't really have any pupils, but despite not having pupils, they can still see pretty far. Now, the upper body consists mostly of these wing arms. Their arms are like wings. The torso/stomach, that kind of area, is going to be more fish-like again. And lower down on their body, their upper legs are feathered again, but everything below the knee can range from very fish-like to very bird-like again. And they also have fishtails that can sometimes be feathered, but are usually not. It's a little bit more uncommon for their tails to have feathers and stuff like that. It's usually more fish-like than anything. Now, going back up to the upper body for a second, they also, some of them, or most of them, will have these floating wings that are kind of by their shoulders. These wings are almost always smaller than their head, but exceptionally powerful, experienced, or older Shyvians might have much larger floating wings by their shoulders. Now, on to the reproduction side of things. I wanted to do something very different with this, rather than it being like the standard reproduction process for creatures and stuff. I decided that they would reproduce asexually through a unique process involving sonic waves, a rhythm pitch, some kind of song, essentially, that they would do, and then that would allow them to basically split a portion of themselves out of their body, after which, if nurtured properly, will turn into a baby Shyvian. I imagine baby Shyvians probably wouldn't have wings around their shoulders, but I guess it doesn't really matter if they do or not. This unique process of like the sonic wave and stuff like that would be unique to every single Shyvian. So when you make your own, you could, if you wanted to, create your own like little rhythm, your own like little jingle, your own little song, or whatever else you wanted to, and that could be your special thing for that. It's something else that can add more uniqueness to each individual creature from this species. Now, on to behavior, because that's mostly all like the biology side of things. I want to move on to behavior here. They recognize one another through sound and appearance. This, like anything covering part of their body, can make it harder for them to recognize one another. Now, this is similar to how birds fail to recognize their owners if they wear a hat or something like that, which is a thing. Obviously, like the more you're around them, they might recognize you, but it might hurt them recognizing you if you wear a hat or something like that. That's kind of where that idea comes from and stuff. Now, that being in mind, the Shyvians are no strangers to accessories anyway, because they have other means of altering their appearance, such as these different jewelries that are never actually physically permanently on them, so they don't do like piercings and things like that. Permanently altering your appearance in pretty much any way is a very taboo thing for Shyvians. You will be very disliked if you put on like piercings, or you permanently do something to your body, other than something like a scar, or oops, my leg is gone now. Other than something like that, it's going to be very taboo, and you're probably going to be shunned. Obviously, if you get like a scar, an injury, like you might lose a leg or something like that, maybe a fin, maybe your tail's injured or something like that, and so it's a permanent thing on you now. But the point is, they're very empathetic, so if this happens to you, they will make an effort to recognize you and learn to recognize this new version of you. But if you do something like a piercing, they're gonna be like, how dare you? They're basically gonna shun you, and then they don't like that. It's a very taboo thing. Now, that being said, they do have jewelry and stuff like that, and they do pride themselves on beauty. So they do have things like earrings and these, like, I don't really know how to describe it other than like these rings that they can put around their arms or legs or like their tails or something like that. They have like these floating orbs and stuff like that that they put around their body. These are things that are not permanent, but they don't even actually technically physically touch them. They just kind of float next to them. I'll get into why that is here in a minute, but for the most part, they have different jewelry and clothing and all these other accessories and stuff like that that they do because they do pride themselves in beauty, but they don't actually physically touch them or permanently alter their appearance, is pretty much what that goes down to. Now, like I said a minute ago, Shyvians are naturally shy and cautious of things that they have not seen yet or interacted with, or in places they've never been before. Those kinds of things will give them a huge spike in anxiety and make them kind of super cautious and everything like that. And of course, they're shy beings. Even amongst themselves, they can be kind of shy sometimes. Their mates, like, I want to talk about how they pick a partner, basically. They will often do this through song and dance, essentially. They'll prove themselves to a mate through song and dance. Again, very similar to how birds will do. They will seek mates later in life. It's usually common that it's like near the end of their life, they'll seek a mate and then reproduce asexually. But that's not always the case. These kinds of mates, though, are known as death mates, since they meet at basically the end of their lives. Again, with the song and dance thing, this is something else I did because it can add more uniqueness and creativity for your own unique Shyvian, because the song and dance is likely to be different amongst many different Shyvians, and so that's another thing that you can throw in there to make your Shyvian a little bit more unique. The last thing I have noted here in the behavior category is that they are a peaceful race with small cities scattered in the tallest mountains and in the deepest oceans. So they can breathe underwater and they can breathe high up in the mountains. Because if you don't know, that's a thing. The higher up you go, the harder it is to breathe, and I guess in a weird way, the deeper you go, the harder it is to breathe. That's kind of a weird thing to think about, actually. On to their abilities. This is where I'm going to explain some of that stuff that I mentioned before. But obviously, they can fly. That's just a thing that they can do. They don't actually like really flap any wings. They don't like flap those little floating wings next to their body, and they also don't flap their arms. But their flight is more like fish swimming in the air rather than flying around like a normal bird would. This gives them the option to float in place and do a lot of like dance movements in the air and stuff like that, which can obviously go back to the behavior side of things with their dancing to attract a mate and stuff like that. Now, they also have this minor gravitational effect. Very small items that don't weigh very much will float if they are within inches of them. This is why the jewelry, such as like the small orbs and the earrings and like the I guess like rings or whatever else you want to call them, kind of float off their body and aren't actually physically touching their body. That's part of why that happens and why that is. They don't have to actually hold things necessarily. If it weighs a lot, they will actually have to hold it, but if it doesn't weigh very much, it kind of just floats around them and stuff. Now, because of this, they can actually swim much faster than they can fly, since they can abuse the gravity to move the water around them. So they can basically move the water around them and basically create a giant air bubble, and that will allow them to pierce through the water much faster than they would be if they were just swimming. They also have a couple of defensive things here, mostly a bleeding cry. This thing, if threatened, can produce a cry high-pitched enough to cause enemies to be disoriented or even bleed through their ears. So if you make this thing angry or if you scare it enough, it will cry so loudly that you will start to get disorientated and possibly bleed. But other than that, they are very fragile beings. And so these abilities, like I said, with the bleeding cry and the floating thing, are pretty much just for their own means of self-defense, and that's pretty much all they use it for. They don't have like an army. There's not armies here. There's no military. They don't really make weapons or anything like that. They're a very peaceful race that cares a lot about beauty and stuff. So that's pretty much everything I have in my notes here. There's a lot of different things here that you can do to make it more unique, like I said, with the mating dance or the special song dance that you have to take a piece off of you and create a new version of yourself, basically. If you guys have any questions about Shyvians, let me know in the comments below. But as promised, I was going to show you guys what my Shyvian looks like, my Moosh. That's what I named him. I named him Moosh. That's what it looks like in Ponytown, or at least the best way I could do it. Someone else may try to make it in Ponytown. I guess I can show that one here real quick too. But that's pretty much all I have here for you today. This isn't really meant to be a Ponytown specific species or anything like that. Feel free to make it in Ponytown if you want to. But I was really hoping to kind of make this more something outside of Ponytown and make it something that people might make avatars in VR chat for, or make their own OCs and a lot of different art and stuff like that for. Something kind of similar to like how you would expect people to use a Wicker Beast or a Nova Beast and all that other stuff. So I'm pretty sure that's all I have here for you today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this regardless. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all of those wonderful things like that. Because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself. And I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.